If World War III were going to start, it probably wouldn't look like a world war at all. And that's exactly why so many people feel like it could happen any day now. But here's the strange part. We are, in some ways, closer than we've been in decades. And at the same time, not even close. So which one is it? Are we actually heading toward World War III? Or are we just being pulled into that feeling? I spent the last few weeks digging into this, military reports, intelligence assessments, historical patterns, trying to answer one simple question. How far away are we, really? And the answer isn't what I expected. Because most people are asking the wrong question. It's not, are there wars happening? There are always wars. The real question is, at what point do separate conflicts start to connect into something bigger? Let's start with the feeling. Because the feeling is real. It does feel like the world is getting more unstable. You open your phone, there's a war update. Another headline. Another escalation. Ukraine. Middle East. Tension in Asia. It feels like everything is happening at once. And your brain starts connecting the dots. This looks like how world wars start. But here's the thing, you're not necessarily seeing more war, you're seeing more access to war. 20 years ago, most of this information didn't reach you instantly. Now it does. Every escalation, every missile, every threat, it's all in your pocket, all the time. And your brain isn't built for that. It doesn't know the difference between something happening nearby and something happening on the other side of the world. So it compresses everything into one feeling. Something big is coming. And that feeling is powerful. But it's not the same thing as reality. Because if you step back for a second, we are not in World War III. Not even close, at least not yet. And there's a simple reason why. A real world war needs a few things to happen at the same time. First, the major powers, countries like the US, China, Russia, they actually have to be fighting each other directly. Right now, they're not. They're competing. They're pressuring each other. They're involved indirectly. But they're not in direct war. Second, conflicts need to connect. Right now, they're still separate. Ukraine is one conflict. The Middle East is another. Asia is more of a tension point than an active war. They're not one system yet. And third, and this is the big one, you would see full-scale mobilization, economies shifting into war mode, factories producing for war, mass conscription, societies reorganizing around conflict. We're nowhere near that. In World War II, major economies were spending massive portions of their entire output on war. Over 40%. Let that sink in. Today, we're spending a fraction of that. Global military spending is about 2.5% of world GDP, because modern economies aren't built to fight global wars. They're built to avoid them. So no, we're not in a world war. What we have right now is a world with multiple, separate tensions, like small fires, burning in different places, not yet connected. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the real danger isn't obvious. It's not that someone wakes up one morning and decides to start World War III. That's not how this would happen. The real risk is that it happens by accident. History actually shows us this. In 1983, during the Cold War, a Soviet officer saw what looked like incoming US nuclear missiles on his radar, according to protocol. He was supposed to respond, launch a counterstrike. But he hesitated. He thought, this doesn't make sense. And he chose to wait. It turned out to be a false alarm. If he had followed the system, we might not be here having this conversation. Now imagine that same situation today. But faster, more automated. Less time to think. That's the risk. Not intention, but miscalculation. And it doesn't stop there. Because once something starts, it's very hard to stop. One side reacts, the other escalates, then it escalates again. And suddenly, no one is in control anymore. And then there's alliances. One country gets pulled in, then another, then another. That's exactly how World War I started. It wasn't planned. It was a chain reaction. So if a world war happens, it probably won't start because someone wants it. It will start because the system fails to contain it. So where could that happen? There are a few places where the risk is higher than others. Let me walk you through them, not as headlines but as scenarios. First, Taiwan. If there's a crisis there, it wouldn't just be a regional issue. Because Taiwan is deeply tied into the global economy. If that supply chain is disrupted, it affects everything. Technology, manufacturing, defense systems. And because of that, multiple major powers are involved, which makes any escalation extremely sensitive. Second, Europe, NATO. The risk here isn't the current war itself, it's spillover. If something crosses into NATO territory, even unintentionally, that changes the entire situation. Because now you're no longer dealing with one country. You're dealing with an alliance. And that's when things escalate very quickly. And then there's the Middle East. This region has always had complex dynamics, multiple players, overlapping interests, long-standing tensions. The risk here is not just one conflict, but multiple conflicts connecting. But here's something most people don't think about. A future world war might not even start with bombs. It could start with systems failing, power grids going down, satellites disrupted, financial systems freezing. By the time people realize what's happening, the conflict has already begun. So, how far away are we really? We're not on the brink. But we're also not as far as we used to be. For a long time, the world moved away from this kind of risk. Now, that edge has come back. Not as an immediate threat, but as a possibility again, and that's what makes this moment different. The probability is still low, but the impact would be massive. And maybe this is the part that matters most. The most dangerous moment in history is not when people expect war. It's when people get used to tension, when instability becomes normal. When small conflicts stop feeling urgent, because they're always there. That's when things connect. So what do you think? Are we overreacting to what we're seeing? Or are we underestimating it? Which scenario feels most likely to you? Let me know in the comments. I read all of them. And if you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe. Don't panic. Just understand what you're looking at. I'll see you in the next one.